The champagne glass slips from my fingers before I can stop it, shattering against the polished marble floor of Willow Creek's most exclusive restaurant. Every head in the private dining room turns toward me, conversations halting mid-sentence. I can't breathe, can't move, can't process what my mother just announced with that eerily pleasant smile on her face. "We've decided to transfer your trust fund to Savannah," Mom repeats, her voice carrying through the silence. "She needs it more than you do right now. $52,000. My money. The trust my grandmother established for me. The foundation of our wedding plans and our future home. Gone. Just like that." Carter's warm hand finds mine under the table, steadying me as the room begins to spin. What should have been the happiest night of our lives, our engagement celebration after 5 years together, has transformed into something unrecognizable. Something cruel. "You can't do that." I finally manage, my voice so quiet I barely hear it myself. "Legally, that money is mine." I pronounce each word loud and clear. Mom's smile tightens. "Oh, Madeline, always so concerned with technicalities." The memory of Grandma's last conversation with me floods back unbidden. Her frail hand clasping mine in the hospital room, her eyes clear despite the pain medication. "This money is for your future, Maddie. Use it wisely for education and then whatever brings you joy." I had honored that promise. Used just enough to finish college with minimal debt. Saved the rest, planned carefully, budgeted down to the penny for a modest wedding and a down payment on our first home together. Unlike Savannah, who blew through her identical inheritance in 18 months, a failed gluten-free bakery, a luxury SUV that she crashed 6 months later, weekend trips to New York and Miami with friends who disappeared when her funds ran dry. I've already allocated that money, I say, forcing strength into my voice. Our venue deposit is due next week. We've been planning this for months. You know that. Dad shifts uncomfortably in his chair but says nothing. Never says anything when Mom gets like this. Plans change. Mom responds with a dismissive wave. Savannah's starting a new business venture. She needs capital. Another business? After the bakery? And the podcast network? And the skincare line? I ask, aware of our friends and family watching this unfold like a car crash in slow motion. This is my money, not yours to redistribute. Now I even raise my voice more determined. Mom's face hardens. That familiar transformation from sugar-sweet to stone happening in an instant. "You've always been selfish. Savannah needs this more than you do." Needing something doesn't entitle her to take what isn't hers, I counter, surprised by my own steadiness. The crack of Mom's palm against my cheek echoes through the private dining room. The sting spreads across my skin as gasps ripple through our guests. Carter half rises beside me, his body tense. Across the table, Savannah examines her manicure, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. For the first time, I notice the waiter by the door discreetly speaking into a phone, his eyes darting between my mother and me. My hands have been trembling since Mom's announcement, but now they still. Something solidifies inside me as I look directly into my mother's eyes, really see her, perhaps for the first time in years. "This is how it's always been," I say quietly. "Savannah makes poor choices, and I'm expected to sacrifice to fix them." The room divides before my eyes. Some guests suddenly find their water glasses fascinating, unable to look at me. Others move closer, Aunt Rachel reaching for my shoulder. Carter's parents exchanging alarmed glances, my college roommate Kate pulling out her phone with purpose. Carter stands fully now, his hand at the small of my back. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant," he says, his voice gentle but firm, "I think it would be best if you left." "This is family business," Mom snaps. "Stay out of it." "I am family," Carter responds. "Or I will be, very soon. And I won't stand by while you assault my fiancé." The truth settles over me with surprising clarity. This isn't just about the money. It's about a lifetime of this pattern, Savannah's needs always prioritized over mine, her failures rewarded while my responsibility is taken for granted. If I back down now, nothing will ever change. I reach for Carter's hand, drawing strength from his unwavering support, my real family. The wedding we've planned, the home we've dreamed of, they're both at risk now. But something else is at stake too, my self-respect and the kind of life I want to build moving forward. And for once, I'm choosing myself. 2 days later, the police report trembles in my hands. Carter sits beside me on our apartment sofa, his warmth a sharp contrast to the cold reality spread across my lap. He places a glass of water on the coffee table, but my fingers are too unsteady to reach for it. 3 prior incidents. I whisper, scanning the neatly typed documentation. 3 times she's done this before. The report details Joanne Grant's physical expressions of emotional distress at a charity fundraiser in 2019, a family reunion in 2021, and most recently, at my cousin's wedding last summer. Each time, witnesses described a slap, followed by family members quickly explaining it away as just how she shows emotion. Carter's arm tightens around my shoulders. Keep reading. The next page knocks the air from my lungs. An email thread between my parents, dated 4 months ago, long before our engagement announcement. Mom's words glare up at me. We've already promised Savannah she can use Madeline's trust money. She needs it to launch her wellness coaching business. I sit heavily against the cushions, the pieces clicking into horrible place. My sister, who blew through her identical $52,000 inheritance in 18 months on a failed gluten-free bakery, an SUV she totaled driving home from a vineyard tour, and weekend getaways with friends who vanished when her bank account emptied, was promised my money months ago. This was never about education restrictions. I say, my voice steadier than I expected. This was about maintaining the pattern. Savannah fails, I pay the price. Carter takes the documents, carefully placing them on the coffee table. You don't have to decide anything tonight. But I already have. I will fight my family till the very end, and I need to prepare. The courthouse feels cavernous the following Tuesday. Judge Harmon presides from her bench, peering down through rectangular glasses at my mother, who sits ramrod straight in a pale pink Chanel suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dad hovers behind her like a nervous shadow, his hand occasionally touching her shoulder in silent support. I smooth the wrinkles from my simple gray blazer, feeling underdressed and overexposed. Mrs. Grant. The judge begins, reviewing the report. This appears to be a pattern of behavior. Mom's chin lifts. I was emotional. My daughter had just announced her engagement after keeping it secret for weeks. The prosecutor, a woman with steel gray hair and unwavering focus, steps forward. Your Honor, we have statements from 12 witnesses who confirm the defendant struck her daughter with substantial force, causing visible redness and swelling to the victim's face. A court-appointed therapist testifies next, using phrases like displaced anger issues and inappropriate physical boundaries. Mom's face remains impassive, but her knuckles whiten around her leather handbag. The sentence comes down like a gentle hammer: 8 months probation, a $2,500 fine, and mandatory anger management sessions. Mom doesn't flinch, but Dad's shoulders slump slightly. My phone buzzes before we even leave the courtroom. Savannah's text burns on the screen. You've destroyed this family. Mom is devastated because of you. By evening, my phone lights up with calls from relatives. Aunt Rachel leaves a voicemail telling me how proud she is that I stood my ground. Uncle Jim's message drips with disappointment that I would air family laundry in public. Cousin Emily texts that Mom has always been high-strung and I should understand that. Great Aunt Patricia sends flowers with a card that simply reads, "About time someone stood up to her." The family fractures along ancient fault lines, with sides drawn according to who has felt the sting of Mom's palm themselves. The civil lawsuit arrives 3 days later, delivered by a courier who seems embarrassed to hand me the envelope. I'm being sued by my own parents for misappropriation of funds intended solely for education. Carter and I sit at our kitchen table that evening, our wedding binder open between us. The Willow Pond venue requires a non-refundable $5,000 deposit by Friday, money now frozen in legal limbo. We could use my savings. Carter offers, but we both know it isn't enough. It's not just the venue. My fingers trace the budget spreadsheet we'd carefully constructed. Dad spoke to your boss yesterday. Carter's face pales. How do you know? Karen from HR texted me. Dad's suggesting the company reconsider your promotion because of family loyalty issues. My chest tightens, the familiar pressure of anxiety building behind my ribs. For the first time, I wonder if the money is worth the scorched earth spreading around us. My phone pings with a Facebook notification. Savannah has posted a family photo from last Christmas, captioning it, "Some people forget where they came from and who supported them through everything. Family isn't disposable when something shinier comes along." The comment section fills with sympathetic responses from relatives and hometown friends who've only heard one version of the story. Our wedding planning calendar stares accusingly from the refrigerator. its milestone dates now impossible to meet as funds divert to legal defense. The doorbell rings the next morning. A slim woman with a sharp bob and sharper eyes stands in the hallway, a leather briefcase tucked under one arm. "Alexis Ward," she says, extending her hand. "I specialize in trust law and family financial disputes. Your Uncle Tom asked me to stop by." She reviews the trust documentation for less than 10 minutes before looking up with the first smile I've seen in days. "This is straightforward. I'm filing for immediate dismissal," she says, tapping the papers with a manicured fingernail. "The language here is crystal clear. Your grandmother established this money for your education and future needs, at your discretion. There are no restrictions that limit it to education only." As Alexis outlines our counterattack, I find myself wondering, is fighting for what's legally mine worth losing my family over? The money represented security for our future, but at what cost to my present peace? Would you stand your ground even if it meant potentially severing family ties forever, or find a compromise to keep the peace? The next day, while I am still preparing the plan for the attack, the calls start at 7 in the morning the next day and don't stop until after 10 at night. Aunt Patricia, my mother's older sister, leaves 3 voicemails about honoring thy parents. Cousin Rachel texts that I'm being dramatic. Even my father's college roommate, a man I've met twice, emails to express his disappointment in my choices. It's a full-scale intervention. I tell Carter, scrolling through the 17 notifications on my phone, orchestrated by my mother, of course. Carter looks up from his coffee, dark circles under his eyes matching mine. "Block them all," he suggests, not for the first time. "You don't owe them explanations." Before I can answer, my phone buzzes with a text from Savannah. I open it, then nearly drop the device. "She's engaged," I whisper, staring at the photo of a massive diamond ring on her finger. The caption reads, "Wedding set for the 18th of June at the Grand Crescent Hotel. Save the date." The 18th of June? Carter moves beside me to look. That's the week before our date. I laugh, but it sounds hollow even to my ears. What a coincidence. The local paper arrives later that morning with the headline, "Family Division Rocks Willow Creek." My mother's quote takes center stage. "All we want is for our daughter to understand that family supports each other. Savannah's new business needs this investment more than Madeline needs an extravagant wedding." My father adds, "We raised her better than this." Not a single attempt to contact me for comment. Carter's phone rings while we're still processing the article. His face tightens as he answers, moving to the bedroom. When he returns 15 minutes later, his expression tells me everything. "My boss wants to meet tomorrow, about loyalty concerns within the company." He runs a hand through his hair. "Your father called him." The doorbell rings. I open it to find Pastor Williams, his Bible tucked under one arm. The man who baptized me, confirmed me, and counseled me through my teenage years now stands on my doorstep with disappointment etched across his face. "Madeline," he says with practiced gentleness, "your mother is heartbroken. That unfortunate incident at dinner was simply motherly correction. The Bible teaches us to honor our parents in all things." I grip the doorframe. Does it teach parents to steal from their children? His expression hardens. "Pride goes before destruction, young lady." I close the door. The first wedding vendor cancellation email arrives that afternoon. The florist regrets to inform me they're overbooked for our date. By evening, the photographer and DJ have followed suit. Each citing different reasons, all suddenly unavailable. They're calling them. I whisper to Carter as we sit in the darkening apartment, telling them we've canceled. Sleep abandons me that night. I stare at the ceiling, counting the hours as they pass. When Carter's alarm goes off at 6, I've been awake since 3, my stomach a tight knot. I've lost 8 pounds in 10 days. The mirror shows a woman I barely recognize, cheekbones too sharp, eyes too hollow. "You need to eat something," Carter says, watching me pick at my toast. I'm not hungry. His parents called yesterday, suggesting we postpone the wedding until things settle down. Their voices held worry, but also uncertainty, the first crack in their unwavering support. When my credit card is declined at the grocery store, I call the bank immediately. "Miss Grant, there's been a significant change to your credit score," the representative explains. "Someone attempted to open 3 credit cards in your name last week. We flagged it as potential fraud." That evening, I try to access our shared wedding planning folder, all our carefully curated ideas, vendor contacts, budget spreadsheets, only to find it completely empty. Every file deleted. They've hacked our account, Carter says, trying unsuccessfully to recover the data. How did they even get access? I sink onto the couch. My mother knows all my security questions. Childhood pet, first school, favorite teacher. Can they really get away with all this? Carter asks, sitting beside me. The question hangs in the air unanswered. In the silence of our apartment, the reality settles around us like dust. The systematic dismantling of our wedding plans, the isolation tactics, the financial sabotage. The doorbell rings again the next morning. I peer through the peephole, half expecting another family member or pastor. Instead, Uncle Tom, my father's younger brother, stands there, shuffling his feet. I open the door cautiously. Uncle Tom. He looks tired, uncomfortable in his suit and tie. Without preamble, he holds out an envelope. It's not much, but it should help with the legal expenses. I take it, confused. I don't understand. Not everyone in this family has lost their moral compass, Maddie. His voice catches. I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle. Tears spring to my eyes as I invite him in. 3 days later, I stand in the courthouse hallway during a recess in our civil trial. Carter has gone to find coffee when my parents and Savannah approach, cornering me against the wall. This has gone far enough, Dad says, his voice low. Drop this nonsense lawsuit and we can all be a family again. Your mother is willing to forgive you. I stare at him, noting how he defers to her even now. Forgive me? For what exactly? For causing all this trouble, Savannah interjects, her new ring catching the fluorescent light. For being selfish. There's nothing to forgive me for, I say, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I'm just asking for what's legally mine. Mom steps closer, her perfume overwhelming in the narrow hallway. If you continue this, you'll never be welcome in our home again. Something shifts inside me, a weight lifting rather than settling. I stand straighter, looking directly into her eyes. That sounds like peace to me, not a punishment. My mother's face contorts with shock. She expected tears, pleading, maybe even surrender. Not this calm clarity. The realization washes over me like cool water. Their love was always conditional on my sacrifice. The relationship they're threatening to withhold isn't one worth saving. I walk away without looking back, feeling lighter with each step. That evening, I find Carter updating our wedding website. A simple statement appears on the homepage. Due to circumstances beyond our control, our wedding plans are evolving, but one thing remains certain: love prevails. My phone chimes with a text from Kate, my college roommate. Emergency wedding shower this Saturday. No excuses. When I arrive at her apartment that weekend, 20 friends greet me with champagne and packages wrapped in silver paper. Replacement gifts, Kate explains, for the ones your family returned. Across the room, Alexis, our attorney, catches my eye and raises her glass. I'm working overtime, she mouths, then holds up a folder. Found some interesting patterns in your family's financial records. As the afternoon unfolds with laughter and support, the contrast becomes crystal clear. While my family tries their hardest to isolate me, my chosen family gathers closer. The night before the verdict, Alexis calls with an update. I've prepared all of Savannah's spending records for cross-examination, she says, her voice confident. And I did some research on Judge Henderson. She has a history of ruling against parental financial manipulation, 3 cases in the last year alone. The next morning, Carter and I enter the courtroom together. Through the gathering crowd, I spot Savannah in the front row, frantically texting, her face flushed with panic. She looks up, catches my eye, and for a moment, genuine fear flashes across her features. I squeeze Carter's hand as we take our seats. Whatever happens next, I'm ready to protect what we have and what is mine. The courthouse air feels thick with tension as I smooth my simple navy dress and take my seat at the plaintiff's table. Carter's hand finds mine, his thumb tracing small circles against my palm, a silent promise that whatever happens today, we face it together. Alexis strides to the front of the courtroom, her burgundy blazer a splash of determination against the muted wood paneling. She begins methodically displaying documents on the large screen facing Judge Harrison, her voice clear and unwavering. Your Honor, the trust documents establish no restrictions beyond educational expenses, which Miss Grant has already satisfied. Alexis clicks to the next slide. These bank records demonstrate Miss Grant's responsible financial management over 7 years. The judge leans forward, studying the screen. I sit taller, willing myself to project confidence despite the flutter in my stomach. Compare this, Alexis continues, with Savannah Grant's identical trust fund, depleted within 18 months on non-educational expenses. She clicks again, and a transaction record appears. My breath catches as I recognize it. Additionally, Your Honor, 3 years ago, Miss Grant loaned her sister $3,000 from her own trust fund to cover rent after another financial crisis. This loan remains unpaid. Murmurs ripple through the courtroom. I hadn't told anyone about that loan except Carter. Alexis must have found it in my bank records. There are 3 similar cases in this circuit. Alexis notes, where adult children's trusts were protected from parental interference after the beneficiary reached maturity. Judge Harrison removes her glasses, pinning my parents with a sharp gaze. Why did you wait until your daughter's engagement to suddenly claim these educational restrictions? My father shifts uncomfortably. My mother's spine stiffens. When Savannah takes the stand, she wears the wounded expression, I've seen her perfect since childhood. Her voice wavers dramatically as she speaks. Madeline always got everything. She was Grandma's favorite. Her lower lip trembles. Mom and Dad promised me that money because they knew I needed help starting over. Alexis approaches for cross-examination, her steps measured and unhurried. Miss Grant, you received an identical trust fund from your grandparents, correct? Yes, but... And you spent that money on a bakery venture, a luxury SUV, and various personal expenses? Savannah glances at our parents. That's different. Different how? Alexis asks, her tone conversational. If these trusts were strictly for college education, why were you allowed to use yours on a bakery and a luxury vehicle without any objection from your parents? Color rises in Savannah's cheeks. Because I needed it more than she did. The words burst from her. She always has everything together. Her perfect job, her perfect fiancé, her perfect plans. She doesn't need help like I do. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Judge Harrison bangs her gavel once. So this isn't about educational restrictions at all, Alexis says quietly. This is about punishing your sister for being responsible with her money. Objection. My mother stands suddenly. This is outrageous. My daughter is being twisted. Mrs. Grant, the judge interrupts. You are not counsel in this case. Sit down or I will hold you in contempt. As my mother sinks back into her seat, I notice the court reporter watching with wide eyes. This family drama has become public record now, the truth laid bare in black and white. When the judge asks if I would consider a settlement that splits the remaining funds with Savannah, I pause. Would compromising bring peace to our family? Or would it just teach them that pressure and manipulation eventually work? Carter takes the stand next, his voice steady as he describes our careful financial planning and our modest wedding budget. We've been saving for 3 years, he explains. The venue requires half the payment up front. We've chosen vendors carefully to stay within our means. Uncle Tom follows, his silver hair catching the fluorescent light. My parents, Madeline's grandparents, established identical trusts for both granddaughters. They spoke often about wanting the girls to have financial security as they started their adult lives. There were never conditions beyond helping with college. When our wedding planner testifies about the mysterious cancellations and harassment of our vendors, Judge Harrison's expression darkens. Someone called every vendor on their list claiming the wedding was canceled. She confirms. I've never seen such deliberate sabotage in 15 years of planning weddings. Alexis stands for her closing argument, her voice resonating through the now silent courtroom. This case has never been about proper use of funds. The evidence clearly shows a pattern of emotional manipulation and control, using money as the weapon. Miss Grant has honored her grandparents' wishes by completing her education and saving the remainder for her future. The attempt to redistribute her inheritance came only when she asserted independence through her engagement. When Judge Harrison dismisses the case, affirming my full rights to the trust fund and ordering my parents to pay my legal fees, I feel something inside me unlock. Not triumph exactly, but vindication. The truth, finally acknowledged. Outside the courtroom, relatives who previously avoided my calls approach hesitantly. Aunt Rachel hugs me, whispering apologies for believing my mother's version of events. Cousin Mark admits he'd questioned the story but hadn't wanted to rock the boat. The local newspaper reporter who covered the hearing asks for a statement. I simply say, the court's findings speak for themselves. As my parents leave, my father pauses, looking back at me with an expression I can't quite read: regret, perhaps, or recognition. But then my mother tugs his arm, and he turns away. Later that afternoon, Uncle Tom calls with surprising news. Word around town is that Savannah's grand wedding plans are suddenly being scaled back dramatically. Seems the money tree has stopped bearing fruit. For the first time in months, I sleep through the night without waking to anxiety. The truth has a weight all its own, and finally, it's no longer mine alone to carry. 2 days after the courtroom confrontation, the doorbell rings at precisely 9 in the morning. Carter glances at me from over his coffee mug, his eyebrows lifting in silent question. We aren't expecting anyone. I'll get it, I say, setting down my own mug. When I open the door, my heart stutters. Mom and Dad stand on my welcome mat, Mom's face arranged in that particular smile she wears when she wants something. Dad shifts his weight from one foot to the other, eyes darting anywhere but my face. Madeline, darling, Mom says, her voice honey sweet. May we come in? We need to talk. Against my better judgment, I step aside. They enter my apartment, Mom's gaze sweeping over everything with barely concealed judgment. Carter? She acknowledges stiffly when she spots him. I'd prefer if Madeline and I could speak privately, mother to daughter. Carter looks to me, waiting. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Carter. I tell her, arms crossing over my chest. He's family now. Mom's smile tightens but doesn't disappear. Fine, we've come to offer reconciliation. Dad clears his throat. Several relatives are reconsidering attending Savannah's wedding. The family feels divided. It's unfortunate. What your father means, Mom interjects, is that we can put this ugliness behind us. We're still your parents, Madeline. Family should come before money. I wait, knowing there's more. But I am ready. Savannah needs just $10,000 for her wedding. Mom finally says, a small portion of what you've insisted on keeping. Surely you can spare that much for your sister. The implication hangs unspoken in the air. My own wedding will be boycotted unless I comply. Carter stands silently behind me, his presence steady as a mountain. I feel his support radiating like warmth against my back. I've been wondering when you'd try this. I say, my voice surprisingly calm. I walk to the desk in our living room and retrieve a folder. Before I answer, there's something you should see. I open the folder and lay out the first sheet of paper, a screenshot of an email. This is a cancellation email supposedly from me to our venue, except I never sent it. I place another paper beside it. This is the digital signature trace. It was sent from Savannah's laptop. Mom's face pales slightly. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm showing you evidence. I lay down more papers, documentation of harassing calls to our vendors, a credit fraud attempt report with Savannah's name highlighted. Your perfect daughter tried to destroy our wedding. When that didn't work, she attempted to ruin my credit score. Dad leans forward, his eyes widening as he scans the documents. What did Savannah do exactly? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Leon? Mom hisses, but for once he doesn't retreat. I pull out one final document, a contract with a private security firm. This is our wedding security detail. Every entrance will be monitored, every guest verified. I close the folder with a soft thud. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your attendance. And I certainly don't need to fund another of Savannah's extravagances. Mom's face hardens, but I notice something new in her eyes, the first flicker of uncertainty. You've always been dramatic. She attempts, but the words lack their usual conviction. The evidence speaks for itself, Carter says quietly. The police have copies of everything. Dad takes a small step away from Mom, something I've never seen before. Why would Savannah do these things? He asks, more to himself than to me. Mom grabs his arm. We're leaving. Clearly Madeline has made her choice. My choice becomes reality weeks later on a perfect spring morning. Our wedding venue, a simple but elegant garden with a stone pavilion, buzzes with activity. Guests mingle on the lawn, champagne flutes glinting in the sunlight. Security personnel in discreet black suits position themselves near every entrance. I'm adjusting my veil when a walkie-talkie crackles from the security guard stationed outside the bridal suite. We've got a situation at the service entrance. A voice reports. Subject identified as Savannah Grant attempting unauthorized entry with contraband. Black paint. Appears to be intended for damage. The security captain approaches me, tablet in hand. Ma'am, we've apprehended your sister. Surveillance footage shows her bribing one of the kitchen staff for access information earlier this week. He turns the tablet so I can see Savannah's face clearly, as she hands money to a young server. My heart pounds, but not with fear. Remove her from the property, I say with surprising steadiness. No charges. Are you certain? He asks. Absolutely. This is my wedding day. I won't let her take another minute of it. When the time comes, Uncle Tom stands proudly beside me at the garden entrance, his arm linked with mine. Ready, Maddie? He asks, his eyes crinkling with emotion. I scan the gathered guests, friends who stood by us, relatives who chose truth over loyalty, colleagues who never wavered. Not a large crowd, but every face reflects genuine happiness for us. More than ready, I answer. As we proceed down the aisle, Carter waits for me beneath an arch of white roses, his smile brighter than the sun overhead. My heart swells with certainty. During our vows, Carter takes my hands in his. You taught me what true strength looks like, he says, voice thick with emotion, not in winning battles, but in choosing which ones matter. As we turn to face our guests as husband and wife, I catch a glimpse of movement at the garden's edge. My father stands alone, watching from a distance. Our eyes meet briefly before he turns and walks away, shoulders hunched. 2 days later, as we prepare to leave for our honeymoon, Kate calls with the latest gossip. Savannah's wedding at the Grand Crescent Hotel has been scaled down to almost nothing, she reports. They've moved from the grand ballroom to the garden room 4 times smaller, and at least 12 relatives have declined their invitations, all citing prior commitments. I feel a complicated mix of emotions that I can't quite name. When we return home a week later, a small package waits on our doorstep. No card, no note. Inside rests my grandmother's pearl and sapphire brooch, a family heirloom I'd always admired, but never expected to own. That evening, Carter's college roommate calls with more news. Joanne and Leon are taking out a second mortgage on their house. Apparently, even Savannah's scaled-back wedding remains extravagant beyond their means. I close my eyes, the brooch cool against my palm. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Others define who you become. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our condo, casting golden rectangles across the hardwood floor where Carter sits cross-legged, carefully repotting a fiddle-leaf fig. 6 months have passed since our wedding, and the peace that fills our Sunday mornings still feels like a revelation. Think she needs more drainage? Carter asks, looking up at me with soil-smudged fingers. I smile, setting down my coffee mug on our kitchen island. Probably. Remember what happened to the last one? Our home bursts with greenery, potted herbs on the kitchen windowsill, hanging plants cascading from macrame holders, a row of succulents marching along our bedroom shelf. Each one thriving, unlike the tense silence and emotional minefields that characterize Sunday mornings at my parents' house. Support group meeting tomorrow? Carter asks, tamping soil gently around the plant's base. I nod, mentally reviewing my notes for the Family Boundary Support Network I started 3 months ago. 10 people confirmed, 2 new attendees. The wedding photos on our mantel catch my eye. Carter and me surrounded by Uncle Tom, Carter's parents Alexis, and friends who stood by us during the crisis. A smaller circle than originally planned, but infinitely stronger. The mail slot clatters, and I retrieve an embossed envelope bearing my parents' return address. An invitation to Christmas dinner, the handwriting unmistakably my mother's. My hands remain steady as I read it. They want us for Christmas, I tell Carter, my voice even. Mom promises a fresh start, and Savannah will be bringing her new boyfriend. Carter watches me carefully. What do you want to do? 6 months ago, this invitation would have sent me spiraling into guilt and obligation. Now, I simply place it in the recycling bin. I'm thinking we should host our own dinner this year. I reply. Uncle Tom, your parents, Kate and Marcus, Alexis if she's not visiting her sister. Later that evening, as we finalize our holiday guest list, I feel none of the guilt or second-guessing that once plagued me. Instead, there's a quiet certainty that feels like coming home to myself. Uncle Tom arrives first on Christmas Day, bearing a bottle of champagne and wearing a ridiculous reindeer sweater. To boundaries that protect the heart, He toasts when our guests have assembled around our dining table, and courage that honors the truth. Glasses clink as winter light fades outside our windows, the room warm with conversation and genuine laughter. 3 months later, on our first anniversary, we host a small gathering. The same faces that supported us through the storm now celebrate with us in the calm that followed. "We have an announcement," Carter says, his arm around my waist as our friends fall silent. Madeline and I are establishing the New Roots Scholarship Fund for students who've been estranged from their families due to situations similar to what we experienced. Alexis raises her glass, her eyes bright. "To choosing your own family and writing your own story." 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrives. My parents' house is being sold, financial difficulties finally catching up with them after years of overextension. I spend an hour researching financial counseling services, then send the information to my father's email with no message attached. No money, just resources. It feels like closing a circle. That night, Carter finds me on our balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in lavender and gold. "Do you regret standing your ground?" he asks, joining me at the railing. "Not for a second," I answer truthfully. Some bridges aren't meant to be repaired. Later, I make a final entry in the journal I've kept throughout this journey. We're discussing starting a family of our own next year. One built on honesty, respect, and the understanding that love should never require sacrifice of your self-worth. As I closed the chapter on my birth family, I wondered what others would have done in my place. Is family loyalty an obligation regardless of treatment, or is there wisdom in recognizing when some relationships bring more harm than healing? When do you think it's time to walk away from toxic family connections, and when should you keep trying? I pull into my driveway, the afternoon sun warming my hands through the windshield. The satisfaction of finally securing Grover's inheritance in the Willow and Pine Trust still hums through my veins. 72 hours since I transferred the $1.2 million, 72 hours of finally breathing easier after 5 years of caregiving. Until I see the moving truck. My tires crunch over the gravel as I slam on the brakes. A burly man in coveralls carries Grover's mahogany writing desk, the one where he penned letters to my grandmother during the Korean War, down the porch steps. My mother stands in the yard, clipboard in hand, directing traffic like a runway controller. "The china cabinet goes next," she calls out, not noticing me yet. "Careful with the crystal inside." My keys slip from my fingers, clattering against the wooden porch boards. The sound echoes through the Oregon craftsman home that's been in our family for 3 generations. That's when I see him. Thatcher emerges from the front door, arms loaded with boxes containing Grover's rare book collection, first editions of Steinbeck and Hemingway, worth at least $70,000. My brother's Tesla sits nearby, trunk open, already half filled with similar boxes. "What are you doing?" My voice comes out strangled, barely recognizable. My mother turns, her surprise quickly masked by a practiced smile. "Blythe, you're early. We thought you'd be at the bank all afternoon." "The bank?" My throat constricts. "I finalized everything 3 days ago." "Yes, well." She waves a document at me, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the sunlight. "This says otherwise." I snatch the paper from her manicured hand. Quitclaim deed. My name forged on the signature line, supposedly transferring ownership back to the family trust. This is a forgery. My hands shake so badly the paper rattles. Forgery is such an ugly word. Thatcher sets the box in his Tesla, patting it like a pet. More like correcting an injustice. 3 weeks ago, we'd sat around the dining table, the same table now being loaded onto the truck. Mom had raised her wine glass in a mock toast. "To Blythe," she'd said, lips curved into something not quite a smile, "who did nothing to earn $1 million inheritance but should definitely share the wealth." Everyone had laugh-a-deverone except me. The next day, Thatcher had cornered me in the kitchen. "So, how exactly does property transfer work when someone dies?" he'd asked, casual as discussing the weather. "Seems complicated with all those county records." That night, I'd contacted the county recorder's office to place a fraud watch on the property. Now my mother steps forward, blocking my path to the house. "Blythe, be reasonable. You manipulated a senile old man into changing his will. This is justice." My voice steadies even as my heart hammers. "Show me the notarization on that deed." She blinks, faltering for just a moment. "It's all legal." "Then you won't mind showing me who notarized it?" My trembling stops. I pull out my phone, muscle memory dialing the county recorder's office. Put that away, Mom snaps, the pleasant facade cracking. Thatcher strolls over, arms swinging casually. Come on, sis, we're just redistributing the wealth. You know Grover would have wanted the family taken care of. The family? I laugh, the sound bitter even to my own ears. You mean your crypto debts and Mom's country club membership? My mother's face hardens. We're taking what's rightfully ours. I see it now, crystal clear. The power dynamic that's always existed, Mom expecting immediate compliance, Thatcher treating serious matters like inside jokes. They stand before me, ready to strip away not just my financial security but my grandparents' life work. 5 years I spent caring for Grover, bathing him, feeding him, reading to him when his eyes failed, holding his hand as he took his final breath. And they see it as manipulation, not love. My finger hovers over the call button. Get off my property, I say quietly, before I have you removed. For the first time, uncertainty flickers across my mother's face. I've made my choice. Next day, I visited the county investigator's office to see how I can protect what's mine. The forged deed sits on County Investigator Dorian Kerr's desk like a snake coiled to strike. I lean forward, my fingers trembling as I trace the notary seal. This is a Nevada stamp, I whisper. My stomach clenches so violently I think I might be sick. Mom's never even been to Nevada. Kerr nods, his weathered face grim beneath salt and pepper hair. Counterfeit. Whoever created this didn't just act on impulse. They planned this. The realization hits like a physical blow. Not a desperate grab for heirlooms in a moment of greed, but a calculated scheme. I sink back into the chair, the room spinning slightly. Your fraud watch request triggered an immediate flag in our system. Kerr slides a folder across the desk. We were already investigating when you called yesterday. Inside lies a stack of trust paperwork, bogus documents claiming to reestablish the family trust with my mother as trustee. The signature at the bottom is supposedly mine. There's more. Kerr's voice drops. The trust paperwork was created on Everlight Properties letterhead. He taps a logo in the corner. Your brother's employer. My hands go cold. Thatcher used his company resources for this? And possibly their digital signature software. Kerr doesn't soften the blow. That's corporate fraud on top of forgery. I stare at the documents, nausea giving way to a simmering rage. 5 years caring for Grover while they visited twice a year. Now this. The county recorder's office feels too bright the next morning. Fluorescent lights bounce off the polished floor as Kerr arranges evidence on the conference table. The door swings open. My mother strides in wearing cream linen pants and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Her tennis bracelet catches the light as she arranges herself in a chair, spine straight, chin lifted. Thatcher slouches in behind her in jeans and a graphic tee with some crypto slogan. His confidence wavers when he spots Kerr's uniform. This meeting is unnecessary, Mom announces. We're simply correcting an injustice in the family. Kerr doesn't smile. Mrs. Rowan, what we have here is forgery under Oregon Revised Statute 93.140. He lays out the fraudulent deed. This carries significant penalties. Thatcher shifts in his seat, eyes darting to the exit. Furthermore, Kerr continues, entering the property after being instructed to leave constitutes criminal trespass. That's ridiculous, Mom snaps. It's my family home. No, ma'am. It legally belongs to your daughter. Kerr turns to Thatcher. And Everlight Properties will be notified of the misuse of their corporate resources. Thatcher goes pale. You can't do that. Already did. Kerr closes the folder with a snap. Later that afternoon, the weight of what's at stake sits heavy on my shoulders as I review documentation with Kerr. The Craftsman house alone is worth $820,000 in today's market. The brokerage account holds another $310,000. If their forgery had succeeded, I would have lost everything. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom's lawyer demanding $150,000 in emotional restitution, plus joint ownership of the property. I nearly laugh at the audacity. They're not backing down, I tell Kerr, showing him the message. After they left home, I am still at his office. They rarely do at this stage. He shuffles papers back into his briefcase. The question is, are you prepared for what comes next? I stare out the window at the county courthouse across the street. What do you mean? Family lawsuits get ugly. People stop speaking for generations. His eyes, kind but direct, meet mine. You'll need to decide if protecting your inheritance is worth the permanent damage to these relationships. The question lands like a stone in still water. Am I ready to sever ties with my only family? Can I face holiday seasons alone knowing I chose this path? But then I think of Grover. His gnarled hand in mine as I fed him soup when Parkinson's made it impossible for him to hold a spoon. The stories he whispered about building the house board by board with my grandmother. Their legacy isn't just about money, it's about honor. The relationship was already damaged, I say finally. They just didn't tell me. Kerr nods, satisfaction flickering across his face. Your fraud watch request saved you. Most people don't think ahead like that. He closes his briefcase with a click. Trust those instincts. The setting sun casts long shadows across the parking lot as I walk to my car. The driver's seat leather is still warm from the day's heat, offering small comfort as I sit quietly, keys in hand. As I drove home that evening, I wondered if I should expose their fraud to our extended family immediately, or wait for the legal system to handle it. The immediate satisfaction of revealing the truth tempted me, but patience might yield a more complete victory. What would you do when your own family becomes the threat you need protection from? 2 days later, the phone rings at 6 a.m. I squint at the caller ID. Aunt Pamela. The third relative in 2 days. How could you? Her voice shakes with righteous fury. After all your mother did for you. I press my fingertips against my temple. What exactly did she tell you, Pamela? That you manipulated poor Grover when he couldn't remember his own name. That you swooped in during his final months and convinced him to cut everyone else out. She pauses dramatically. 31 of us, Blythe. 31 family members who loved him just as much as you did. I swallow the acid rising in my throat. My mother has been busy. Did she happen to mention she forged documents to steal the house? My voice remains steady. Or that Thatcher's crypto investments collapsed and he's desperate for cash? Silence stretches between us then. That's not what she do. Ask her about the county fraud investigation. Ask Thatcher why Everlight Properties is auditing his work accounts. The line goes dead. I add Pamela to my growing list of relatives who've called to condemn me without hearing my side. 27 and counting. Later that afternoon, I flip the light switch in the kitchen. Nothing happens. I try the living room. Same result. When I call the power company, the customer service representative sounds confused. According to our records, service was transferred yesterday at the request of the new owner. New owner? My stomach drops. I'm the owner. That's not what our records show, ma'am. A Corinne Rowan requested the change. It takes 3 hours, 2 managers, and copies of my deed to restore power. By nightfall, my water gets shut off too. That night, headlights sweep across my bedroom ceiling. Through the window, I spot Thatcher's Tesla circling the block for the 3rd time. I lie awake until dawn, jumping at every creak and groan of the old house, imagining footsteps on the porch, a key in the lock. The next day, I install security cameras at every entrance. The system sends alerts to my phone whenever someone approaches. I start a log of every interaction with Corinne and Thatcher, recording dates, times, witnesses. When Thatcher parks across the street for 2 hours, I photograph his car and add it to my growing file. In days to come, I stop answering calls from unknown numbers. I change the locks. I sleep with Grover's old baseball bat beside my bed, though I've never swung anything heavier than a tennis racket in my life. The doorbell rings on Thursday morning. I check the security camera feed on my phone before approaching. A woman in a charcoal suit stands on my porch holding a cardboard tray with 2 coffee cups. Not a relative. Not a process server. I open the door a cautious 3 inches. Blythe Rowan? Her smile is professional but warm. I'm Sonia Vargas, estate attorney. We spoke briefly after your grandfather's passing. I remember her firm handshake at the reading of the will. I open the door wider. She offers me one of the coffee cups. I thought you might need this. And this. She pulls a thick envelope from her leather portfolio. It's a cease and desist letter to your mother and brother. The county investigator forwarded me the case details. I accept the coffee, the envelope, feeling something unclench inside my chest for the first time in weeks. Your grandparents would be proud, she says quietly. They raised a fighter. My phone rings that evening as I spread documents across the kitchen table. Evidence packets for every relative, copies of the forged deed, the county fraud notice, timeline of events. I've sorted them into neat stacks secured with binder clips, each addressed and ready to mail. Thatcher's name flashes on my screen. I consider letting it go to voicemail, then answer. Why can't you just share? His voice sounds hoarse, desperate. You're destroying this family. I look at the photographs spread before me. Grover teaching me to fish. My grandmother's hands showing me how to roll pie crust. 5 years of doctor appointments, medication schedules, and late-night vigils. I didn't destroy anything, I tell him. I just stopped pretending it was whole. Mom's a wreck. No one's speaking to me at work. Is that what you wanted? The question hangs between us. For a moment, I feel that familiar twingeth need to smooth things over, make peace, be the reasonable one. It's what I've always done. But something shifts inside me, like tectonic plates realigning. I feel Grover's steady presence beside me, his carpenter's hands that built this house, his unwavering belief in doing what's right regardless of what's easy. What I want, I say clearly, is for you both to stop trying to steal what isn't yours. I hear Sonia's voice the next afternoon, leaving a message while I'm in the shower. Ethics complaint filed against Thatcher with the Oregon Real Estate Board. I've documented his fraudulent use of company letterhead and digital signatures. Call me when you can. When I check my email, there's a notification from Dorian Kerr at the county recorder's office. Formal investigation proceeding. Your property remains secure. While my family unleashes accusations, these professionals, people with no reason to help except professional integrity, stand beside me. Their steady support straightens my spine, lifts my chin. When I call Kerr back to thank him, my voice no longer wavers with uncertainty. I work late into the night, compiling the evidence packets for all 31 relatives. Each contains time-stamped documentation, copies of the forged deed with the county's fraud notice highlighted, and a simple cover letter stating facts without defensiveness or apology. Just before midnight, Sonia texts. For your information, Everlight Properties has zero tolerance for compliance violations. 3 strikes and you're out. Thatcher already has 2 from previous incidents. I look at my computer screen where an email to the entire family sits ready to send, my evidence packets attached. My finger hovers over the button. 1 click, and everyone will know exactly what Corinne and Thatcher attempted. 1 click, and there's no going back. I've made my choice. On Monday next week, I slide the last manila envelope into the FedEx box, my grandfather's old fountain pen clutched in my hand. The pen feels solid against my palm, heavier than those disposable ballpoints Thatcher always used to sign his fake documents. Priority overnight to all 31 relatives. I tell the clerk, pushing the box across the counter. Signature required. The clerk raises an eyebrow but doesn't comment. She probably sees family drama play out across her counter every day. What she doesn't see is the carefully organized evidence inside each envelope. County fraud notices with official seals, color copies of the forged deed with Thatcher's handwriting analysis, and flash drives containing his voice messages. You've been busy, Sonia says as we walk to the parking lot after I sent everything. My estate attorney carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who's seen it all but is still occasionally surprised. 31 packets, each one different. I tap the itemized receipt in my hand. Aunt Margaret gets the recording where Thatcher admits using company letterhead. Uncle Paul gets the timestamp data proving Mom was in Nevada when the Oregon notary supposedly witnessed her signature. My phone buzzes 3 hours later. Cousin Deirdre, always the first to call. Blythe, I had no idea. Her voice quavers. Mom said you were exploiting Grover, but these documents. I'm so sorry. By evening, 2 more cousins call with similar apologies. I don't gloat. I simply thank them for listening to my side. The following Tuesday, I'm sorting through applications for a security company when my office phone rings. Our receptionist's voice carries unusual tension. Your brother is here, Blythe. He says he just wants to talk. I glance at the framed restraining order on my desk. Tell security there's an active no-contact order. Call the police. Through my office window, I watch Thatcher in the lobby, his designer jacket now rumpled, his confident smile replaced with something harder. When the security guard approaches, Thatcher's face contorts. He pounds his fist against the receptionist's desk before officers arrive. You're destroying everything, he shouts as they escort him out. We're family. That phrase again, family, as if the word alone grants permission to steal. 3 hours later, my phone lights up with a message from Everlight Properties Compliance Department. They've received screenshots of Thatcher using company letterhead for the forgery. The attachments include security footage of Thatcher accessing the office after hours, sending emails from his supervisor's account. I should feel triumphant. Instead, I feel hollow as I watch the pieces fall exactly where I've placed them. When the district attorney's office calls about pressing felony charges, I hesitate. Would criminal prosecution bring justice? Or would keeping this civil allow the family to heal while still protecting my inheritance? The question hangs in the air as I hold the phone, my grandfather's mantel clock ticking steadily in the background. That evening, Sonia arrives with thick folders tucked under her arm, her reading glasses perched on her head. I submitted the ethics complaint to the Oregon Bar Association this morning, she says, spreading documents across my kitchen table. 27 pages detailing how Thatcher misused company resources, committed forgery, and violated fiduciary duty laws. I pour us both coffee, the scent of dark roast filling the kitchen where I'd spent countless hours feeding Grover pureed foods during his final months. Kerr called, I tell her, sliding a mug across the table. He filed his official report recommending criminal charges, said the evidence is exceptionally compelling. Sonia nods, not celebrating, just acknowledging another step completed. Thatcher's in trouble professionally, too. Everlight has a zero-tolerance policy for compliance violations. They suspended him this morning pending investigation. I sink into a kitchen chair, fingers tracing the wood grain my grandfather had lovingly restored decades ago. Is it worth it? All this? Sonia removes her glasses, fixing me with a direct gaze. Your grandfather trusted you with his legacy because you were the only one who truly valued it, not its price tag, its meaning. The next morning brings 3 developments in rapid succession. First, Corinne's lawyer files withdrawal papers, citing irreconcilable differences with the client regarding case strategy. Translation: he's seen our evidence and wants no part of what's coming. Second, Uncle Roger calls to inform me that Aunt Helen uninvited Corinne from the upcoming dinner. Family's talking, he says awkwardly. People are seeing things differently now. The third comes via email from Everlight's HR department, copied to all employees. Thatcher faces a 72-hour internal audit that will determine his continued employment. The message includes language about upholding the highest standards of professional integrity. I close my laptop and walk to the window overlooking the garden where Grover taught me to plant tomatoes when I was 7. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders relax. The battle isn't over, but for the first time, I'm not fighting alone. Next week, the doorbell rings just as I finish my morning coffee. Through the security camera feed on my phone, I spot Corinne and Thatcher standing on my porch. My mother's usual designer ensemble has been replaced by a conservative black pantsuit that screams, serious business. Thatcher hovers behind her, shoulders hunched in a discount department store button-down that hangs loose where his designer shirts once fit perfectly. I take my time answering, letting the Oregon rain soak into their shoulders. When I finally open the door, I don't invite them in. Whatever you're selling, I'm not interested, I say, one hand still on the doorknob. Corinne forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Blythe, we need to talk, family to family. We have a compromise, Thatcher adds, his voice lacking its usual smug confidence. Something that works for everyone. I cross my arms but stay silent, making them fill the space. Drop the charges, Corinne says, her voice dropping to a whisper. In exchange, we'll accept $50,000 and agree to family therapy. Thatcher steps forward. This legal battle will destroy what's left of this family. Is that what Grover would have wanted? The mention of my grandfather's name ignites something inside me. I feel my face flush hot with anger. Don't you dare speak his name, I say, my voice steady. Not after what you tried to do. We made a mistake, Corinne interjects, reaching for my arm. I step back. But family forgives. Family heals. A laugh escapes me, short and bitter. Is that what this is about? Healing? I grab an envelope from the side table and hold it up. You're 3 days too late. Corinne's forced smile falters. What do you mean? I've already moved everything offshore. The house, the accounts, all of it transferred into an irrevocable trust. Their expressions change in tandem confusion, then disbelief, then horror. You can't do that, Thatcher sputters. I pull out a letter from inside the envelope and unfold it. This arrived yesterday. Everlight Properties has terminated your employment, citing gross violations of fiduciary duty and fraud. They've been quite cooperative with the county prosecutor. Thatcher's face drains of color as he snatches the letter, scanning it with trembling hands. "This is temporary," Corinne says, her voice rising. "They can't prove anything without." "Without evidence?" I finish for her. "They have your signatures on the forged documents. They have the fake notary seal Thatcher ordered online. They have the emails he sent from his company account planning all of this." I step onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind me. For the first time in my life, I stand taller than my mother seems. "The family was already destroyed," I tell her quietly. "I'm just choosing not to pretend otherwise." 3 days later, I stand on the courthouse steps as the spring sun breaks through the clouds. Thatcher has just been arraigned on Class C felony forgery charges. His lawyer hurries him toward a waiting car, but Corinne lingers, watching me with red-rimmed eyes. I walk directly toward her, my heart hammering in my chest, but my steps steady. The manila envelope in my hands feels heavier than it should. "What more do you want?" she asks, her voice cracking. "Haven't you done enough?" I hold out the envelope. "This is the last thing I have to say to you." She hesitates before taking it, suspicion narrowing her eyes. When she pulls out the contents, her breath catches. Photos of Grover and Mabel, me grandparents on their 50th anniversary, standing proudly in front of the house that would become my inheritance, the same house she tried to steal. A small note rests between the photos. They trusted me to protect their legacy. I did. Corinne's hands shake. With a sudden jerk, she tears the photos in half, then quarters. "You self-righteous little." She stops mid-sentence, her gaze shifting past me. I follow her eyes to see 3 of our relatives standing across the street: Aunt Patty, Uncle Jim, and Cousin Rachel. They watch in stunned silence as torn pieces of my grandparents' photos flutter from Corinne's hands. Without another word, I turn and walk away, leaving my mother standing alone with the torn fragments of our family's past scattered at her feet. 2 weeks later, the news arrives. Thatcher has accepted a plea deal, probation, hefty fines, and a permanent fraud conviction that will follow him for life. My phone buzzes with a text from Sonia. "Corinne next? Civil liability for conspiracy still on the table." I set the phone down without answering. The battle has left me hollow rather than triumphant. That evening, as I settle into Grover's old reading chair with a cup of tea, my phone lights up with a voicemail notification from a number I don't recognize. "Blythe? This is your cousin Daniel, your grandfather's sister's grandson. We've never met, but I've been hearing about what happened with Aunt Corinne and Thatcher. I'd like to hear your side of the story, if you're willing to tell it. Some of us think you did the right thing." I stare at the phone long after the message ends, wondering if the price of justice might be worth it after all. 3 months after the victory, I slide open the workshop doors, breathing in the familiar scent of sawdust and tung oil. Grover's tools hang in perfect order against the pegboard wall, each hammer, chisel, and plane exactly where he left them. Sunlight streams through the newly cleaned windows, casting golden rectangles across the workbench where my grandfather taught me to sand with the grain. "No longer just visiting," I whisper, running my fingers along the maple workbench. 3 months since the courthouse steps. 3 months since I watched Mother tear up Grover's photos while the extended family witnessed her true nature. Now, instead of explaining why I deserve to be here, I'm planning which heirloom pieces to restore first and how to preserve the workshop for future generations. The east wall needs better insulation before winter, I tell Sonia as she examines the space. And I'm thinking of adding skylights to improve the natural light. She nods, smiling at the confidence in my voice. Grover would approve. No apologies, no justifications about the inheritance, just forward movement. The family reunion buzzes with conversation on the back lawn. Tables draped in checkered cloths hold platters of fried chicken and corn on the cob, Grover's favorite summer meal. Cousins mingle near the lemonade station while aunts arrange desserts by the oak tree. I tap my glass with a spoon. The chatter dies down as 30 pairs of eyes turn toward me. "Thank you all for coming." I begin, my voice steady where it once would have trembled. "Some of you know that these past months haven't been easy. There were attempts to contest Grover's will through forgery and fraud. No defensive explanations this time, no begging for understanding, just facts presented with quiet dignity. The legal matters have been resolved. This property remains as Grover intended, a place where family can gather and remember what matters. Aunt Phyllis, who once forwarded Mother's accusatory emails, approaches first. "You've handled this with grace," she says, squeezing my hand. "Grover chose wisely." Uncle Warren follows. "The house looks better than it has in decades." Their respect feels different than approval, something earned rather than granted. Later, in the quiet kitchen of the main house, I raise a glass with Dorian and Sonia. The county investigator and estate attorney have become friends through our shared battle. "To protecting those who can't protect themselves," Dorian offers. Sonia adds, "and to those who find the courage to stand their ground." Our glasses clink in the warm kitchen light. That evening, after everyone is gone, I wind Grover's mantle clock, the weekly ritual he performed every Sunday night for 60 years. The brass key turns with familiar resistance, the mechanism tightening with a comforting series of clicks. I've already spoken with Sonia about establishing a legal aid fund for elder financial abuse victims. 10% of the inheritance will provide representation for seniors facing what Grover might have without me. The clock begins its deep, resonant chime, 9 notes marking both the hour and the generations this house has sheltered. "I kept your promise," I whisper to Grover's portrait above the fireplace. His eyes seem to twinkle with approval in the lamplight, and I found my strength along the way. The house settles around me, creaking and sighing like a living thing. As I sit in my grandfather's chair that night, I wonder if some families can survive the truth while others are destroyed by it. When protecting what's right means losing those you love, what choice would you make? I know mine, and at last, I'm at peace with it.